But we can just start as a conversation so he's not making it like action,
For
you
the
know
first
what I
2 minutes, I'm just
mean?
gonna be monitoring. It might be just in your second
Yeah, no problem.
here. Just for the first
I
two.
like when you hear the sound bites in the beginning, you know?
Of just talking and chilling.
Yeah. So be relaxed, comfortable.
Well, you know
Don't
how.
give me all this string type of, I want to answer every question like a Virgo.
Well, you're gonna. That's what you're getting. You know what I mean? That's what it is.
Okay.
I am a Virgo. At the end of the day.
So Mathew, a.k.a. Jumble Mortimer.
Mathew, a.k.a. Jumble Mortimer. Yeah,
I
yeah.
always start by saying thank you for coming to sit down with me and have this conversation. You, of all people, know exactly. You are hands-on there day one, so you know why we're doing this.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be discussing what you learned about your past relationship, about your marriage, and your divorce.
Okay.
So I guess my first question would be, because you could tell them you were married for, basically let me know how long you were in a relationship with her, how long you were married, and stuff like that.
In a relationship for a total of 7 years, married for 3.
So altogether 10 years.
No, altogether 7.
Oh.
Out of that 7 was 3.
Okay, out of
We
the
were
7 was
married.
3.
Yeah.
Okay, and when did you guys meet? How old were you?
27?
27.
27,
age.
turning 28. It's all right, man. I look good for it. Shoot.
Four.
For how old am I? I'm 38.
38, yes. You
Turning 39 this year.
are. Praise the Lord.
What?
So you guys been married, altogether you guys were together for 7 years, right?
Altogether 7 years.
7 years. What made you know that she was the person that you wanted to marry?
By the things she was saying. At that time, I was working for a telecommunication company. And I really wanted to start working with kids.
Okay.
That was my passion since I was a child. I wanted to be a social worker.
Yeah.
Or a youth worker. And when I was looking into the salary of a social worker and youth worker, for a youth worker, it was just like $18 an hour, something like that at that time. It wasn't that much.
No.
And
They make us do all the work and they don't pay us enough. Continue.
okay, that's okay,
I'm just
hit a nerve.
Yeah,
But when I told her how much I was gonna be, and she's like, as long as you're happy and you wake up every morning loving what you do,
Yeah.
she was gonna support me. And I was just like, that was one of the things that made me think, all right, yeah, she's a good one to keep.
Is there anything else? So you needed that support in a wife. You needed that encouragement. Someone that was a team player.
It was more, right. It wasn't like, here, I need you to support me. It was more of the idea of, I don't care how much money you're making, as long as you're happy and you're waking up happy. That's what was important to her.
Yeah.
And I admire that. Like, that's something I'm just like, okay, you don't find that a lot, because most women, or the idea of what you hear about most women, I can't say all women, but most women are like, no, I want you to make this amount of money, this amount of figure, if you're going to be.
Happy with what
Right.
you were doing.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's big too.
Yeah, that, her family, how she interacted with her family, that was a major thing for me as well.
Okay. So the day you decided that you were going to get married and you were going to plan this, share that experience with me.
That I was going to propose to her?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Let's.
Like you understand why you're with her.
Yeah.
Why she's the one you need to be with. Now it moves forward to making that decision. How do you go about that? Did you speak to her parents? Were you nervous? Did you get cold feet? Did you want to back out a little? Share that experience for men going through that and saying, okay, I'm going to make this decision. How does it feel?
You're nervous? I was nervous.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, when you're going to make that decision, I always say this, and I guess a lot of people might contest, that when a man makes up his mind that he's going to marry, they go all in. But then you still have that thought, am I making the wrong decision? Is this the right person? You see certain red flags and you're just like, can I live with it? Can I not live with it? And you're scared because it's a commitment. It's a life thing. Because
You're like, can I deal with this red flag
Right,
for the rest of my life?
right. So I was nervous
Mm-hmm.
because we were arguing. We did have our issues,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, I felt that who she presented herself to be,
Mm-hmm.
and the good that I saw when we were one on one,
Mm-hmm.
outweighed everything else.
Okay.
So she moved here to Montreal before I moved here.
You're originally from Toronto.
I'm originally from
Yeah.
Toronto. So when she moved,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that she would write letters and she would say, I missed you and all that stuff, it's like, okay,
This is the girl for me.
this is the girl for me.
Yeah.
So when I wanted to propose before coming here,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't get my funds in order before that.
But you're
So,
like, wait till I get my money right. Like,
right, I had to get that ring for her and stuff like that.
yeah.
So I decided before moving that I was going to. Plus, I was super into church then too. So
Okay, was she into church? Did you
she's
guys have the
into
same
church,
spiritual
but
beliefs?
we had the same spiritual belief.
Okay.
But I was more uh, church active, if
Mm-hmm.
I guess I can say it.
Yeah.
I was more active in church than she was.
So now, like, because clearly from the beginning we said it, now you're divorced.
Yes.
So when did that relationship begin to break down? And how, this is two questions, and how do you think you contributed to the breakdown?
The relationship began to break down hindsight 2020 with being separated now for 3 years could be almost from the beginning.
Yeah.
How I contributed to it was by not being honest with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I would say when I saw trouble
Yeah.
happening because we lived separate
Yeah.
our
For a
whole
bit.
marriage. No,
For
for
a
our
whole
whole
marriage?
marriage.
Oh, yes.
Only for
Okay.
only 1 year or a few months, not even a full year, that we were consecutive months together. So I got married
But explain
in
that part too, so people can have a clear understanding why, when you guys got married, you didn't live together.
I got married May,
Well, you guys did live together, but you couldn't live
right.
together.
I got married May 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and then a job opportunity came in October
Mm-hmm.
2015.
Mm-hmm.
This job opportunity took me out of Montreal, and I
Mm-hmm.
was living in Nunavik.
Yeah.
But that job opportunity gave me the ability to make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And when we discussed it at first, she didn't want me to go.
Yeah.
But then when I presented the plan in my mind of, listen, this will set us up to buy a house, this will set us up for to have kids, this will set us up to pay off debt. Like it was that amount of money that I could have made up there or made. We decided we're going to do it for 1 year.
Yeah.
So I will be working 2 months, 1 month off.
Yeah.
So out of the year, I only saw her for 4 months.
But you guys were talking and speaking every day and stuff like that?
Yes and no.
What do you mean by this?
Yes and no because I'm more of the one in the relationship that needs to talk every day.
Okay.
She doesn't need no, she didn't need to talk every day, and that was one of the contentions.
Yeah. I have a question. Do you feel as if maybe if you were here, that because she doesn't like to talk that often, the connection would have been different had you lived with her? Because
Yeah.
maybe she doesn't talk that often, but things like watching a movie, cooking together, doing stuff together is her type of thing.
Yeah, and that's where I said I feel that I failed.
Okay.
And the reason being is that when I saw the red flags and I saw that it wasn't working, no matter how much money and no matter what we were saying, I should have said, no, I'm coming back home.
Mm-hmm.
Because the relationship is more than the money, means more than me being in this marriage
Yeah.
is more than whatever money I can bring.
Yeah.
We could have worked it out.
So when you came back at this point, do you think there was any chance of you salvaging the relationship?
Tried,
Try.
tried, but then when you get to a certain point where you're separated for so long and there's not a lot of communication,
Yeah.
of expectation, people's expectations change in a relationship and we're not communicating that, then it's harder to walk. How can two men walk unless they agree?
Yeah.
So that's very important, not only in business, but especially in marriage.
Yeah. Did you know that now, or this is a lesson that you learned after?
It's a lesson that I learned after. I knew before,
But you didn't know how to apply it, kind of thing?
right,
Exactly.
right. I came from a household where my mom uh, was divorced from my dad and then from
Yeah.
my sister's dad, and she's in her third marriage, which is going great, but not. And I said this to her when we first got engaged, not knowing what a perfect marriage or what a great, healthy marriage looks like, and her not having, her parents weren't married, so not knowing what that perfect marriage looks like with compromise, communication,
Healthy, I would
a
say.
healthy, yeah, not perfect, healthy. That was going to be an issue and a challenge.
Yeah. Something
I
you guys had
wanted
to
to
learn.
do everything that I heard my mom want her husbands to do for her. So I overcompensated. I always said I wanted to treat my wife as a queen. Whatever she wants, she gets. But that was difficult because then I also did a lot of reading and watched a lot of documentaries and a lot of stuff before getting married and understanding about financing and building.
Yeah.
And that was one of the arguments we had was dating me is going to be different than married to me. Dating me, we're courting. Dating me, I'm saying like, yeah, let's go here, let's do that, let's do this. But then being married, now we're in a building stage.
Yeah.
And in that building stage, you might not be doing as much of activities to get to know each other. But now these activities have to switch of, okay, these are our goals and how are we going to achieve these goals and what are we sacrificing for that?
I have a question to ask you. You had said something about you always wanted to treat her like a queen, and you watch your parents' relationship, and you always wanted to make sure she had everything she needed. Did you ever, and this is a question, did you ever in the marriage stop to ask her, what is it that you need from me? Instead of you having the assumption of what you think she needs?
No.
No. How do you think about that now?
Well, it's the first time somebody asked me about it. So there you go. Um, we had premarital counseling. And in that premarital counseling, we talked a little bit about what each other wants for our future. So I understood that there. And we had a plan of her going to school, and I was supporting that. And after her school, then I will go back to school. So we had that foundation.
Yeah.
And that's where I was saying before, when things change, not communicating when those things change is where one of the downfalls was or were.
What is that?
Because with living apart, there's things that every married couple goes through for the first year, I believe,
Yeah.
of acclimating your lives together. And we didn't have that. So our first year of normal marriage arguments didn't happen in the same household.
Yeah.
So we had the disadvantage of when I'm mad at you,
How do I deal with that?
I could just not talk to you because it's either it's going to be hard to reach me or I can just ignore your call. What are you going to do? It's not like I can just, I'm in the next room and saying, yo, are you ignoring me? Like, you can't have that passive aggressiveness of, I'm mad at you, but here's dinner.
Yeah.
So I'm still showing you love. It's, I'm mad at you and I'm now can't be reached
Yeah.
because of the distance. We thought we could have handled it because at one point of our relationship we were separate, like we were long distance, we were dating long distance. She was here in Montreal, I was in Toronto, but we would visit each other and talk to each other almost every day,
Yeah.
and we would visit twice a month. So we thought we could handle that because of our past. But as I said, expectation in marriage changes than expectations in dating.
Yeah, for sure.
So now that we're married, I have this idea of what I want my marriage to be, and she had her idea of what her marriage. We thought we came together and communicated well, but we didn't. And now that I am thousands of kilometers away from her, and I'm missing things that I need, and I'm dealing and realizing of my insecurities, of my need for her to be more connected, for her to be more available, and her ability to be so independent,
Yeah.
how that clashed.
So you're at the point now where it's clashing. It's coming to that point where you have to make a decision. Like, are we going to work this out or we're going to move forward? But you guys decide to divorce. Could you?
No, no, no.
She decided to divorce.
She decided to get a divorce. I realized that the marriage was more important than anything. So I was like, I would leave, stop making this money, and I'll come back and I'll do the work. I will go to counseling. I'll do what I need to do
Yeah.
to make this work. I'll have whatever hard discussions, whatever it might be. But that was something she had to work on for herself. There's many times she asked for a divorce 3 times in total. Married 3 years, she asked for the divorce every time. There was one time actually I did say, if you want to leave, leave. It will hurt me, but I will get past it. And that was after the first time she said it. But I said, listen, if you're going to stay, don't say it to me again.
Yeah.
And she said it to me again. I still came back and I said, listen, this is what the Bible says a husband has to do. And if I'm going to take the embarrassment, if I'm going to take the embarrassment. But then she's like, no, we can go back to counseling. And then during counseling, only did 2 sessions. Had one argument. That argument, I guess, was the straw that broke the camel's back. I went to her and I said, hey, we don't, I'm not asking for a divorce, but we were living in a 2-bedroom apartment at that time. So I was like, listen, there's a lot of back and forth contention. So I will stay in 1 bedroom. You can stay in 1 bedroom. I still want to do marriage counseling. I still want to fix this. And she said no. She wanted a divorce. And at that time I was tired. I was done fighting. And I gave it to her. I said, yeah.
So now that you guys are in this divorce, can you speak on what you went through as a man? Because women and men go through it differently. And I've heard before.
Failure.
You felt failure.
I felt like I failed. The one thing, because my parents divorced when I was younger, the one thing, and divorce has been in my family. I wanted to break that.
Yeah.
And that's why I chose her, because she also said she never wanted to be divorced.
Yeah.
So that was a very important thing. That means, look, we're both going to fight for
For
this.
this, yeah.
And when she asked for it and I finally said yes, I just felt a failure. I felt ashamed. My ego took a huge hit.
Yeah, for sure.
I went into depression and everything. And you hear a lot of people come to you like, it's not you, it's her, and all that. But at the end of the day, as a man, it's you take it on as it's me,
Yeah.
no matter
I know
what
men
anybody's.
feel that, and I've learned to understand that about a man. Even with the last sit down I did with Coach, and he said like when you become a husband, it's a different level of protection.
Yeah.
And I think that as men, what I'm learning is that men feel that they're like, no, this is my queen. I have to.
Right.
It becomes a necessary thing
Right.
to do. So when it hits, like I had this conversation with women too. When it hits a man, it hits us differently. I'm not saying that men are not used to heartbreak, but over the years, my experience, they don't experience it as often as women. So we've become more, I guess, we've become more used to it.
Right.
Versus when a man goes through it, and it's different because a man, I find men guard their heart. They really guard
Right.
their heart until they know it's that person.
So then when you get that divorce,
Exactly.
it hits harder for us.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, we guarded. I got married at 30. It wasn't no fly-by-night decision of a whim of a romance.
Yeah.
It was, let me see this person, let me see the qualities. I could see qualities I didn't like,
You were
but you know what?
intentional.
I was very intentional.
Yeah.
I was very intentional. And when it broke down, as you know, and you can contest, is that I still protect her.
Yes, you really do. And I said that from the day I met. I think I met you when you were actually going.
Nobody
through,
knew
you
it was
didn't
going.
know,
Nobody
but
knew.
months later you told us, and we
Yeah.
were like, what? So I continue to say you've handled that with so much grace. You've never called her out of her name. You've called her wife up until the day you divorced her. And I think that hats off, because some men would have been just so mad and like not all men, but some men would have been just really heartbroken. And I did see you go through it. I did see you go through the depression, like just you're still working your way through certain things, and you're handling it with grace.
Yeah.
But overall, out of this whole entire experience, you've dated her, you've loved her, and I still think you do love her.
There will always be a part of me that will love her.
Love her.
She was my wife.
Yeah.
I was planning to grow old and have kids and have the picket fence and have the grand, like she was my first wife.
Yeah.
So she will always have a piece of my heart.
I agree. So overall, this whole experience, because it is an experience, it is. Everything we're going through in life is teaching us, it's growing us, it's building us, and we may not like the process that it takes for us to get there.
Right.
But overall, what have you learned about yourself in relationships, and what have you learned overall?
About relationships?
Like this relationship.
This relationship taught me about perspectives a lot. And that's something now I take on and speak to everybody about.
In regards to, can you elaborate a little bit more?
When we look at a cup and it's just it's a white cup with a logo, let's just say Nike on the front. So when you're holding a cup, may I use this cup for an example?
Yeah, go ahead. And you can definitely use it here in Montreal because.
So, hello. On this cup it says beauteous. Beauteous. What you said. And right now it's a white cup. You're saying it's a beauteous cup.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's just a white cup.
Everyone has different perspectives.
We all have different perspectives, but here we are arguing.
Yeah.
You're going to defend your point to the death to get it across to me, and I'm going to defend it like it's just a plain white cup. There's nothing special about it.
Just
But
like,
if we just realize that what we're arguing about is still a cup, it still has value, it still holds the tea,
yeah,
is it important enough that now this relationship is going to break down
no,
over it? No.
yeah,
But when we get into marriage, I'm going to take a little bit of this. When we get into a marriage, a lot of the times this cup becomes the main focus of I need to describe this cup and you have to
agree with me.
agree with me because we can't move forward until we agree
We could agree to disagree and still love each other
and still love each other. That's something where
and
I
compromise. Yeah,
I struggled.
yeah,
I struggled with, and for me, she might say something different. I think she struggled with it too.
okay.
Granted, we're both Virgos. Never going to do that again. We both wanted to be right, and none of us. They say it a
That's
lot.
right there. That's
Yeah.
right there. We both wanted to be
We
right.
both wanted to be right.
Like, and it's not about who's right or wrong. It's about finding the truth. So when we
Yeah.
explore each other's perspective, we're able to understand, was it your insecurities that made you see it that way? Were you really seeing what you're seeing? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's why the importance of conversation and comprehension is so important. And I'm learning that for myself.
But
too.
it's about open conversation because you can have a conversation and you're still guarded.
Yeah.
And one thing I learned about is, am I listening to understand or am I just listening to respond?
Yeah.
And a lot of people listen to respond and they don't listen to understand.
It's about understanding someone else's perspective.
Right.
Taking you out of yourself. That's why relationships, you have to be selfless. If you have a selfish, and not that we notice that we're selfish going into it. I'm sure I've been selfish many times, in relationships, but I think that it's just stripping yourself of yourself, to
Right.
be with somebody else. And that's the only way that it's going to work. So what are your last few words that you like to say about this experience?
I wouldn't change it.
You wouldn't change it.
Everything is meant to be. And I still think marriage is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. Not that I know, but I heard about it, and I can't wait to experience it. And
Marriage.
I for my
Oh,
man,
yeah, you better get it. Yes. I don't know about dying. It's good for you. I think marriage is a good thing. I really do. I wouldn't change my experience and my time with her. The one thing I would do different is when me as a man seeing that it wasn't working, how we were going about it, even though she's like, no, we can do it, I would be like, nah, I'm coming home.
Yeah.
A lot of times in relationships, women want you to put them first, but it's always when you're thinking about it in a sense of family, friends.
Your wife is first.
My wife is first in everything, even if she feels like this is worth it. No, you are more worth it, even if you think that this is the best route. And then we would have still, I think we still would have been married today.
Okay. Cool.
That was nice and sweet.
To the point. And yeah, it's true. I'm a ride, but I don't know if I'm gonna die.
Yeah, listen.
He go-
Listen, that's another thing I learned. That's another thing. Like, I gave a lot, and I don't know. And this is one thing that I've changed since then. I don't know if I'll ever give as much as I gave in that relationship. Which I know for you, you're like, no, you can't say that. Don't say that.
I
No.
am hoping that you are able to give as much here, because I think love is a beautiful thing. And if you can't give all of you, then you might as well that's just my perspective. You might as well just be by yourself, because everyone's gonna break your heart. You just gotta choose the right people for it.
Yeah, but you gotta guard it in some ways.
100%.
And I
But
didn't
you
guard
can't
it at
always
all.
protect it all the time. This is another conversation.
This is another conversation.
But thank you so much for sitting with me. And
You're welcome.
I love you like cooked food.
Fresh vegetables.
Fresh vegetables. Alrighty.
All right.